Deep beneath the Greenland ice sheet lies an archaeological nightmare. Imagine digging up a Roman gladiator and finding an Apple Watch strapped to his wrist, still ticking. That feeling of impossible chronological vertigo? That is exactly what the first explorers felt when they met the Thule hunters, the direct ancestors of the modern Inuit in the high Arctic. By every definition, these people were living in the Stone Age, no wheel, no agriculture, and crucially, archaeologists have proven they had no technology to smelt ore, no furnaces hot enough. But look closely at what that hunter is holding. It is a blade forged from a material heavier than any terrestrial rock. It is freezing to the touch and gleams with a greasy grey lustre. Bring a compass near it and the needle goes haywire. It is alive with magnetism. This isn't just a tool, this is a glitch in the Matrix. A Stone Age human wielding a weapon forged in the crushing gravity of a dying asteroid core. Now, if this were just one isolated tribe in Greenland, we could write it off. A fluke, an anomaly. But here's the thing. The ancients knew something we forgot. They were connected by a secret, global network of this sky metal. Let's shift gears. Flash over 4,000 miles south to the blistering heat of Egypt. Archaeologists unseal the tomb of Tutankhamun. They unwrap the mummy of the boy king. And there, strapped tightly to his thigh, is a dagger. It's flawless! It hasn't rusted in 3,000 years. Why? Because it's made of the exact same alien stuff found in Greenland. High nickel iron meteorite. Think about it. From the pharaohs of the Nile to the hunters at the roof of the world. Why were the most isolated cultures on Earth obsessed with this specific material? They didn't see it as a resource. They saw it as a sacred bridge, a physical piece of heaven that could be held in the hand. They knew instinctively that this metal was not of this earth. When Western explorers finally arrived up north and asked the Inuit, "Where did you mine this metal?" the Inuit didn't point to a mountain. They pointed up. Their legends didn't speak of geology. They spoke of a cosmic event. Picture the scene. Sitting around their fire during the long polar night, listening to the elder. He tells stories of 3 great entities cast out of the heavens by an evil spirit. He describes them burning through the atmosphere, screaming across the sky, and crashing onto the ice. They personified them. They even named them. The woman, the dog, and the massive 30-ton piece they called the tent. Translate that. They aren't describing rocks. They are describing a crash site. To the Thule people, these weren't inert lumps of iron. These were silent, fallen entities that had taken up residence in their territory. When they harvested the metal, they weren't doing metallurgy. They were communing with the bodies of a fallen pantheon. And this is where modern archaeology hits a brick wall of hard facts. Take that tool back to the lab. Put it under a microscope. The results are shocking. Normal earth iron is just iron, but this? Analysis shows nearly 8% nickel, plus traces of cobalt and phosphorus. That chemical signature is the fingerprint of outer space. Furthermore, slice it open. Inside you see these strange geometric cross-hatching crystals, Widmanstätten patterns. Any metallurgist will tell you, those patterns only form when molten metal cools down over millions of years in the zero-gravity vacuum of space. You literally cannot fake this on Earth. So we know it's alien, but the engineering mystery, that's the terrifying part. Without a furnace, how do you turn a solid chunk of extraterrestrial stubbornness into a delicate harpoon tip? They used a technique called cold forging. But that's too clinical a term. Let's call it what it was: torture. Visualize the reality. It's the 24-hour darkness of the polar winter. 40 below zero. A hunter takes a heavy basalt rock dragged from tens of miles away and smashes it against the space metal. Clang, again, clang, This goes on for hours, days, hands bleeding in the cold, maybe chipping off a flake the size of a fingernail. To make a single knife might take the dedicated effort of a father, passed down to his son. This isn't speculation. Around the meteorite sites, archaeologists found fields of shattered basalt rocks, 20 tons of hammerstones left behind. No human would do this just for a slightly better cutting edge. This was an agonizing, brute force negotiation with an alien deity that refused to yield. For centuries, the Inuit protected these fallen gods. They took only small flakes with immense effort and respect. And then, in the 1890s, the modern world arrived in the form of American explorer Robert Peary. Peary didn't see deities. He saw trophies. He saw a ticket to fame. He became obsessed with taking the largest piece, the 31-ton tent, back to New York. What followed was one of the most brutal engineering feats in Arctic history. Peary built a railway across the ice. He used massive hydraulic jacks. He forced the very people who worshipped this object to help him tear it from the frozen ground. It took 3 years. The Inuit watched in horror as their iron mountain was dragged onto a ship. But you cannot steal a god without consequences. Peary didn't just take the rocks. On that same ship, he convinced 6 Inuit hunters to come with him to New York, promising them a brief visit to the civilized world. Within months of arriving in the bacteria-ridden city, 4 of them were dead from influenza and tuberculosis. Among the dead was a chief named Chisuk. His young son, Minik, survived, only to discover years later the ultimate betrayal. His father hadn't been buried. His body had been defleshed, and his bones were kept in a drawer at the American Museum of Natural History as a scientific specimen. The people and their gods suffered the same fate, captured, catalogued, and imprisoned in a glass case far from home. Today, if you visit that museum in New York, you can see the massive meteorite. It's so heavy its supports go straight down into the bedrock of Manhattan. It sits there, dark, silent, and imposing. A captive alien king. Knowing that tragedy, ask yourself again, why? Why did the ancients cherish this metal so deeply? Maybe we are still looking at this wrong. We see a heavy rock in a museum, but remember the magnetism. Remember the aurora borealis shimmying above the ice. This meteorite is a highly magnetic piece of a planetary core. It vibrates with invisible energy. Perhaps for the shaman holding that piece of sky metal under the green lights of the aurora, it wasn't a tool. It wasn't even just a god. Perhaps it was an antenna, a physical conductor connecting the frozen earth to the electric sky, a way to hold the vibrations of the cosmos in a bare hand. When Peary took the meteorites, he didn't just steal their Iron Age. He severed their connection. He unplugged them from a circuit that we are only just beginning to understand.